everybody, welcome to this episode of Indie Spotlight. I'm Brian.
I'm Leah Stalker.
I am Clint, and the only thing that may be more soothing than listening to the sound of our voices is if you could cue up and get lost in the music of Savini Effect. Well, unfortunately, you kind of can, so I guess you're stuck listening to us talk about it.
They can't find it? They can buy the CD somewhere, right?
I don't know. I did a search, and I mean, Savini Effect is indier than indie. I don't think it's available anywhere. Of course, we got a copy.
How did we get a copy?
It is such a long story, and I'm so glad that you asked. From us going to Living Dead Weekend, and there was this guy that I saw there. Every time I'm there, I see him there, and his name is Paul, and I'm going to try to not screw up your last name, because I will screw up your last name, because that's what I do. Farvor. I think I got that right. Paul Farvor. He's always at Living Dead Weekend at the Monroeville Mall, and he resembles a young George Romero, and he always wears the same kind of plaid-colored scarf that George Romero wore. So then, about a year ago, the last time that we were at Flashback in Chicago, I'm sorry. And then also I'm a part of Living Dead Weekend on Facebook. And so I suggest that you guys and anybody listening join the Living Dead Weekend Facebook group. And Paul's on there doing stuff. Lawrence DeVincent's and all kinds of cool people involved in that universe. Brian and I were at Flashback, and here comes Paul walking, who we had never really met or been introduced. And I just recognized him, and he walked up to the Ink Mirrors table, him and another guy. And I said, "Hey, you're Paul, right?" And I said, "I always see you at Living Dead Weekend." And then we just struck up a conversation. We talked about Savini Effect, and they gave us a CD and a t-shirt and I think a sticker or something too.
Yeah, I did a search too, and I was like, I can't find anything. There was an article about the band wrapping up like from several years ago that they weren't going to be doing any more tours or music. And I was like, well, son of a bitch, I was going to buy another CD.
I have a bunch of people who want to hear this. I have so many friends who are writers, and I was telling them that this is perfect music for like writing, vibing, like being creative. And all of them were like, where can we listen to it at? And I was like, I don't know. I have no idea.
The only thing I could find about them was I found one article. It was on whiteclawbloodradio.blogspot.com. And it just, it goes over and says Savini Effect is Paul Shell, who plays electric guitar and does effects. Rich Shell, electric guitar and effects. Nick Wajtal, bass guitar and effects. And Paul Farvor, who does drums and the synthesizer. It says here that the band is fueled by two things: horror films and themes from horror films. Once you submerge yourself in these movies, you'll discover some of the most haunting scores ever composed. You can find amazing music in films like The Beyond, Zombie, and Phantasm. Savini Effect was formed in 2007 by four guys with one common interest: horror movies. All members had always been into horror and science fiction, but were unaware that each other played musical instruments. Once it dawned on them, they quickly started learning these musical scores, drawing particularly from the Italian horror genre, giallo.
Ooh, I love that.
I noticed that right away. First song on the album, This Is Italian. You put this in a giallo film, and this is perfect. And then as the album goes on, it has these ebb and flows, and I don't know if you felt the same way, either of you. Maybe Clint more, because you love Castlevania, but a couple of those songs, I was like, this is a Castlevania theme for like a video game. It went giallo, 80s horror, video game. It just went all these different places. One song would be giallo or Italian, and then the next one's a video game, and then the next one's an 80s horror. And you're just on this wild ride for an hour for 52 minutes.
The very first song, Serpent in the City, I was like, I know this. I've heard this before. A lot of the music that Savini Effect does, it's almost like they're a cover band or a tribute band, and they're like paying tribute to these songs. So like later on, there's track 9 is Demon Killer, and it's Dario Argento's Demons, but it's kind of their own little flavor. But it reminded me when Boots and I went and saw Goblin at the Redford, and I'm listening to it, and it was like seeing Goblin perform two demons live in the background. But the very first one, Serpent in the City, I'm like, I know this. What movie is this fucking from? And so I'm sitting on YouTube, like searching up Nightmare City soundtrack, The Beyond soundtrack, Zombie 2 soundtrack, trying to figure out where I heard it, and I didn't find it.
I had a completely different experience from both of you, because once again, I don't know the deep cuts and the deep tracks. I don't know what giallo is. I didn't know that it was Italian or anything like that. That being said, me being in the dark per usual, which is completely fine. I'm very comfortable here. I loved everything about this. I just came at it from a different point of view. I was sitting there listening to it. I was taking my notes on each song as it was going along. I was listening to it on Friday night. I realized I was actually running a little bit behind behind. I needed to start getting ready for a girls' night. So I'm listening to the album, and then I started getting ready for girls' night, and it became the perfect soundtrack to getting ready, to doing my hair, doing my makeup. I did have a completely different experience from both of you. You're doing research, this and that. I'm just vibing and doing my makeup to this music. Like, a huge compliment, in my opinion, is the fact that it just perfectly aligned with getting hype and getting excited about a night out and all that sort of stuff. But you guys are like doing research, picking out things. I didn't realize it was covers. I still had a good time.
I think a lot of it too is because, Leah, I don't know if you've ever listened to instrumental synth electric music like this before. I know you have a wide taste in a lot of things, but I've been a connoisseur of this music for a long time. I'd never heard Savini Effect before. So, I mean, I listen to this stuff a lot when I'm printing t-shirts or, like you say, when I'm writing or just doing things. It reminds me of when my daughters were really little, and some people laughed at this, but I would, when they were studying, or if we were studying for a really hard test, a big test, I would play like piano music or classical or light classical in the background and stuff. So it's very, like you say, it sets the mood, and it's relaxing. So since I've listened to this stuff a lot, my ear went to, oh, there's the Phantasm soundtrack. Oh, there's a song. Oh, there's Demons, just because I've, listened to all this stuff.
Which I think is valid. I think that it's great that you were able to pluck those things out, but just making it very clear to people that even if you don't know all the deep cuts, that's, I think, the perspective I usually bring to it, is that even if you don't know all the background stories, you don't know all the deep cuts, you don't know all the references, I love when you can still absolutely enjoy it on the same level. This is something where no matter if you're very accustomed to this style of music, if you're very new to it, I do like music that sometimes doesn't have lyrics, just because, like I said, I write to a lot of stuff like this, and you can't have the lyrics or else it's going to start going onto your paper. No matter what your experience level is, you're going to love this. So I think that's valid.
With all the Taylor Swift that gets played in Brian's household, I wonder if he wishes that maybe they had an instrumental Taylor Swift album, Because, so like, for example, like I love death metal and a lot of hardcore music and stuff, but I don't listen to a lot of it because the vocals for me ruin it. I can't stand those guttural monotone vocals. But if you can tune that out or find some of that, which Savini Effect isn't death metal or anything like that. I'm going off on a tangent here. The musicianship is superb. I wonder if that'd be the same with Taylor Swift.
I will say, just because there is absolutely no other time I'll be able to bring this up, is that my new favorite thing is, of course, I do love Taylor Swift. I also do love metal. I have an entire playlist of metal Taylor Swift cover songs. We need to.
What?
It's so good because I listen to it constantly. That's what I listen to when I'm driving places. It's Taylor Swift covered by metal bands. It's so free. I didn't think I could love Taylor Swift anymore, but now I do, because I like metal versions more than her original songs from a lot of things.
You'll have to send this because I want to hear it.
I absolutely will.
I wonder how metal they actually are if they're covering Taylor Swift.
I Prevail covered Blank Space. I'm so excited. This is the most animated I've been on the entire show. Is talking about Taylor
I don't even know what you just said. She just spoke Greek. I Prevail Blank Space. I'm like, what?
I will send it to you, I promise. I'll send it to both of you.
Brian, do you have your Ovaltine decoder ring to figure out what the fuck it was she just said? I don't know.
Yes. Be sure to drink your Ovaltine. Ovaltine? A crummy commercial? Son of a bitch.
I left it in the kitchen next to the radio.
We got to get Finley on the Taylor Swift metal covers, 100%. It's something that the whole family can love. But anyway.
Is it like hard metal?
Some of them are not as hard as others because it's a variety of bands, but there's one band called Hallison where it's a female singer, and then she's covering Taylor Swift. And they have the breakdowns, they have the screaming. Some of them are a little bit lighter than others. No, I have an entire playlist of Taylor Swift metal songs, and this is the only time ever I can share this information with anyone. The stars aligned.
Finley is super weird when it comes to music because she loves Taylor Swift and she has a CD player next to her bed. So I'll try to put that on at night and she'll go over to the Google and say, Google, play 80s rock music. And I'm like,
yeah,
you have Taylor Swift right here. But every night she wants to go to bed to 80s rock music. And we actually listen to some of the CD on the way to school in the morning because I get up, we get ready, I take her to the coffee shop, we go to school. There's 2 Bigfoot cutouts on the way to school. So we always always see if they moved, she's always like, that one moved. I was like, yeah, sure it did, sis. And then we had the conversation about horror history this month was Cannibal Holocaust came out. I was playing the theme to Cannibal Holocaust, and Tiffany's, what is that? I was like, isn't it beautiful? Isn't that like some of the most beautiful music you've ever heard in your life? She's like, yeah, it's really cool. And I was like, yeah, because you don't know what happens in the movie. And maybe that's one of the things that people that would say, well, I don't like horror films. Well, if you don't know what this music is referencing, you can just listen to it, enjoy it as beautiful scores to anything or just background music, because that's what I did with it a lot. I put it on in the background and listened to it, and then I had it on in the car, and then I would, edit some of the podcasts, and I'd play a track, and then I'd go back to editing or watch a video and then go back to the music. It's perfect. I wish I had it on vinyl because I could just, on Sunday mornings, we put music on.
Yes.
Just put a record on while we eat breakfast or whatever, and it would be awesome just to put that on vinyl, let it go, and then flip it over.
That was part of my notes, is that I said that I would 100% would love this on vinyl. It would be my go-to constantly. The moment that I wake up in the morning, I turn on my PC, I put on Apple Music. Music is always going in my house. So in my room, and when I'm working in my office, when I'm getting ready in the bathroom to go out or something, there's always music just following me around the house. But this is something where I would love to have this on vinyl. This is 100% going to become an album where I need to get it off the drive. I have to figure out how to do that. I'm a little slow at the tech sometimes, but I want to listen to this constantly. I just feel like it could be on a forever loop, and I would be so happy with that, just because it blends beautifully into the background, but then every now and then some bass hits or just something kicks up and you're just like, whoa, like you just get excited about it.
So, Brian, to your point, there's a lot of people who like, oh, I would never watch Cannibal Holocaust, or I would never watch Demons, just, it's just stuff like that. I'm not into that type of stuff. Zombie 2, Nightmare City. I gotta wonder if, just like to your point, if they heard this music, if they're like, oh, this is beautiful, this is mesmerizing, and then realize that a lot of those songs that came from Goblin and Italian orchestras and the synth and all that, it actually goes along with these movies, and it goes along with the action, and the rhythms of the movie. Like the music actually kind of, to a degree, tells the story. With Savini Effect, I mean, that's what Savini Effect is. It's a celebration of electric horror scores from such films as Dawn of the Dead, Demons, the film we covered on the last episode of the flagship show when we did Nightmare City. Basically, Savini Effect is Goblin, but not from Italy, from Wisconsin.
It's so funny because literally my notes for the song Zombie Island is Zombie Island comes in and it's so distinctly different. It's very gritty, somehow goblin-like. So I don't know. It's just it's very interesting to me that between you two knowing all of these deep cut references for it and me being completely new eyes, there's no lyrics in this album, just to make it abundantly clear to people. There's no singing. It's all instrumental, but it conveys so much and it paints such a distinct picture. So even with 3 people, different experience levels listening to it, we're all picking out the same things. And that's remarkable to me.
Not only that, but like I said earlier, it doesn't get much more indie than this. These are just passionate people doing something because they love it, fucking period. I mean, they did some live shows, they handed us a CD, but I mean, they don't have, you can't find them on YouTube, you can't find them on Spotify, I even went to Paul's Facebook page and there's not much mention of it. I don't know if obviously we bumped into him at Flashback, and it was him, and I'm assuming one of the other guys from the band, I forget his name. If I remember right, I almost think like they were talking about maybe getting the band back together. I don't know. But it's not like they were seeking fame or fortune. They were like, we just like to do this shit, and we're just going to do it. And they're all talented.
It was very talented. And that's so respectful that you're not trying to get anything out of it. You just need to, I was going to say, you just need to share with the world, but they're not even sharing it with the world. They literally just had a vision that they had to get out. Sometimes you have those ideas where you just need to kind of vomit them out to get them out of your system. And then you're just like, okay, that's done. I'm going to move on to the next project. And that's so respectful. But I'm also so mad because I want to share this with so many people. There's so many people that would just go insane for this album.
Well, I have a suggestion where we can share a little bit of Savini Effect. First of all, I just want to say real quick that you were talking about sharing the Taylor Swift metal stuff. It just made me think of what we were talking about just before we recorded. Since I was given this CD by Paul at Flashback about a year ago, there was no way to get it to you guys. I ripped the tracks onto my computer, and then I sent one track to Brian, and he was like, it didn't convert, thank you. And so I was like, okay, so I just went ahead and recorded everything in Audacity so you guys could listen to it and send it to you that way. So for you guys, the experience was a little different. Like you were saying, like you didn't have a track list. You just listened to all the songs. And of course, when one ended, it paused, and then, they would queue up for the next one, but you didn't have a track list or anything. I had that. So it was a different experience for you guys. Anyway, I'm rambling. I think we should share some Savini Effect with the world right now.
Yes.
So what about favorite songs? This album, this CD that we got had 11 tracks on it. Leah, what was your favorite Savini Effect song from the album, The Horror of It All?
I'm going to start out really early and say that what really pulled me in, Serpent in the City is the first song. It was a very good song. But the Contaminated, when that bass started chugging in right at the beginning, or maybe it was a little bit further in, the Contaminated just really absolutely solidified pulling my attention into this album. Like I said, Serpent in the City was very good. But then that second song hit and I was just like, oh, this is a big deal. This is something where I'm zoning in on it. So The Contaminated is the one that really pulled my attention into this album. And I think that was my favorite out of it. The whole thing's fabulous, but The Contaminated is my contender for my favorite.
So let's hear a little bit of The Contaminated. Brian, what you got?
You always talk about in movies and the haunt industry and pretty much anything, you got to get people within the first 15 seconds, 30 seconds. And that first song, Serpent in the City, hit. And I'm like, I'm in. You got me. I'm going to Italy. I'm going to watch some bad fucking horror movies that's going to be batshit crazy and fun.
Gory.
Yeah, I'm going to like the score more than I like the movie, maybe. I'm sold. I want to take this ride. And then, we didn't have the track list, and I'm listening in the car and on my phone. There's ones that I feel like I'm in a video game. Then there's ones I feel like I'm in an 80s slasher. But first 30 seconds on what's Serpent in the City, I'm so in on this. I want it on vinyl. I want it on a CD. I want it to play in the car. I want it to play, I don't even know, like over a movie.
I'll talk about that in a minute, but Serpent in the City was my pick also. I love that early 80s, just kind of urban, like Serpent in the City could have went with Death Wish 2 as well. Or it could go with, God damn it, Serpent in the City was homage to some movie, and I just can't think of what it was. I'll find it one day, and it's going to hit me, and I'm going to go, oh my God, that's it.
You got to pull up, what is the app that will tell you what music is?
Shazam?
You got to... It'll probably be like Death Wish 2.
You guys and your technology. I just got into this conversation with Rebecca the other day, and she was like, oh, you should use this app where it does this and that. And I was like, or I could just use my fucking pencil and my piece of paper. Leave me alone. I just want my Rolodex and my rotary phone.
He's going to be on his deathbed, and he's going to be like, Rebecca, I want to tell you something before I go. Serpent of the City is from Death Wish 14.
I researched that in a book. I didn't use an app.
I spent the last 13 years of my life trying to figure that out. Took time away from my family, but it was worth it.
Clint goes out doing what he loves doing, telling other people they're wrong and that he's right.
That is so not true. That's a terrible argument, because me trying to counter argue that just proves your argument. I'm fucked. That's checkmate. Let's hear Serpent in the City. You fucks.
Clint went out doing what he loves, arguing.
Here lies Clan, lover of Serpent in the City.
I just spit fucking water onto myself.
It's nice to know that people can find humor and fascinating and fantasizing about your death. Yeah.
But we don't hate the Savini Effect.
No, we love the Savini Effect.
Is this the only album they have? Do you know?
So I'm pretty sure it is. So the little bit that you can find about Savini Effect, kind of like it was said here in the wildclawbloodradio.blogspot.com. I think they met and formed like 2007, 2008. I think this came out in 2009, and I believe that this is it. I need to reach out to Paul because I need to ask him some questions, and I thought about trying to reach out to him to have him so we could interview him, but I'm glad that we did this so we could just maybe wet people's palates and enjoy the conversation. But I'd like to do a follow-up with this at some point and really talk to Paul and get some details because it's intriguing.
It's the most mysterious thing ever because you made such a solid album. Anyone can listen to this album and say, that's good, that's great. And it's kind of, there's always this thing of like with television shows or maybe movie franchises and musicians and things like that, where they say like, you should go out leaving people wanting more. Like some people will drag shit into the ground and they just overdo it and this and that. But this is the epitome of leave them wanting more because you put out one solid album front to back and then you just go, all right, it's on to the next thing. Like, how do you do that? How do you not get pulled into wanting to do more, wanting to do it again? I don't even like interviewing people that much, just to be really upfront, but I would love to pick his brain because this is brilliant. It's brilliant. And then to just leave it as is.
So again, I'll get to that in just a minute because I have an idea. Now that everybody is done fantasizing about my death and my love of paper and pencils, and since Brian and I both had the same favorite song, which was Serpent in the City, I'm going to pick another one. It's really hard to choose. There was only a couple tracks on this that I was just like, nah, you know what I mean? And none of it I hated. I loved all of it. There was a couple in the middle where I'm like, eh. But it's really hard to choose because track 10, Castle Freak, was good. Of course, like I say, 9, Demon Killer, which was Dario Argento's Demons, was good. The last track, 11, Jody's Nightmare from Phantasm, was great. I'll have to go back and listen again, but I'm pretty sure it was track 3, which was Zombie Island. And it started with that really kind of like gurgly, swampy kind of sound. And I loved that. Leah, you know this. Well, I think Brian, you do too, but we're working on adding another attraction out to Haunting in the Hills, which is going to be swamp related. I don't know if that's a spoiler or not. I just told the world or the 11 people that listen to us because we're a lot like Savini Effect. You know, we just do it because we love it. It was very inspiring. And I thought I can tie this music into what I'm doing. So let's hear Zombie Island. I said something about a pizza party. Do you know who else deserves an extra piece of pizza at the pizza party?
Me.
Oh, Brian.
No, Brian, not you. And not Rod either. Everybody else from our podcast network, the PFPN.
Poor fucking Rod. Can't catch a break.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal, providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.
So now that we've heard from the podcast network, do you got another story, Clint? Yeah, more story time with Clint?
Story time with Clint. Story time with Clint. Story time with Clint. It's story time with Clint. He's got stories.
Now I don't have to put together a theme song. Thank you. I'm going to use that over and over. You're going to be like, holy shit. But I think I'm going to get a hold of Savini Effect and be like, could you put like a funky ass beat to this, please? Like, drum breakdown. But
Some synth music in the background.
that was so like innocent and fun. All right. Anyway, I have this concept. Again, I think both of you know a little bit about it. I haven't really talked about it and revealed it to the world. So here we go. Da-da-da-da-da. Exclusive. Haunting in the Hills, Stagecoach Stop, Psychotherapy, The Nugget. Everything out there, you guys, everybody listening hears me talk about this, that, and 50,000 other things about it. It's all true. A lot of moving parts. One of the parts, and this is still going to be a little ways down the road, but I feel comfortable enough talking about it right now. And there's a reason, because we're really starting to get things going on it, laying the groundwork for it. But part of what's going to happen out there is we are going to be building basically a studio for bands, for filmmakers, for podcasters, for painters, for photographers. The possibilities are endless. We're not trying to become like an accredited college or anything like that. It's basically just going to be like a third space, like an after school program where everybody from high school kids to Rod, who hates his job at Walmart, who's like, what? Maybe Rod hates his job. I don't know. To be like, I've always wanted to learn photography. I've always wanted to learn how to shoot a film or compose music or whatever, to just show up and be around like-minded people and learn something. And maybe it can take you somewhere. So the reason I bring all that up is we talked earlier in this episode. I really want to talk to Paul and ask him some more questions about Savini Effect. I want to understand it a little more. I'm hoping that maybe us talking about this CD that he gave Brian and I maybe lights a fire, like, oh my God, there's people out there who really do enjoy our music. And I'm sure that there's other people who have talked about Savini Effect. It's not just us, but I'm hoping it's just like a little match. And then maybe they could get going, because I tell you what, I would love to be able to know that I could call Savini Effect and say, I need you to record music for my upcoming indie project or for the intro to Storytime with Clint, although Leah did a fantastic job. And it just, when I started thinking about Savini Effect in that aspect, it made me think of everything that I just told you about Haunting in the Hills. I thought, God, wouldn't that be cool if, not exactly, but what if Savini Effect, what if they lived in Michigan instead of in Wisconsin, and they were like the house band, and they were, they taught music at Studio City at Haunting in the Hills. A lot of interesting concepts there. And what I love about this show and about indie is the possibilities are endless. Everything leads to something else, and it makes you think, and I hope everything inspires everybody to try to do something cool.
The most important words that jumped out, everything that you said was fantastic. I love the entire idea, but the words that really jumped out and stuck with me are third space, because I don't think these days that people have that third space that they need. And some people might not even be aware. Most people have home, you have work. For people like me, I work from home. I'm here constantly. So that's why I make it such an effort to go to events and get out and touch grass and go to concerts, is because I'm here all the time. But creating that third space for creatives, I would live there. That would be amazing. I love the entire idea of it. And I think that's really important. I think a lot of people would find value in that. So I love it. You always have the best idea.
Well, so I cannot take full credit for this. So part of that was like my initial intention with the direction, the vision out there down the road. Triple M. So you know who Triple M is? Yeah. Triple M really he came to me and asked me some questions and kind of presented an extension of my idea. When he told me, I was like, oh my God, I had this idea and you are embellishing on it and you didn't even know about my idea. So it's very collaborative, and him and I are kind of working towards that direction. Again, this stuff's like a ways down the road, but I don't want to steal the spotlight of the show here. It just felt like a perfect time to explain that, because I can see Savini Effect being a part of something like this, whether it's at Haunting in the Hills or maybe in their own community, and maybe they are and we don't know.
It's perfect spot for people that are like Savini Effect. You have people that show up that they love music, they love horror, but maybe they don't have those connections, so they can show up at this third space and meet like-minded people and maybe form a band or form a working relationship of some kind. Or maybe you just get people that are like, I don't know what I'm good at or creative at, so I want to go check this out and see if any of it lights a spark. It's always hard because I don't feel I'm creative. I never looked at myself and was like, oh, I'm creative. When you get busy and you get moving, then people are like, you should slow down. And then your creative part of you is like, well, what the fuck would I do with all my free time? What would you do? Maybe we all kind of are creative in our own weird way.
I think that you're very creative, Brian. The thing is that I think that people need to expand. When people think creative, they do think music or drawing or something like that. I've told you time and time before, pull back the curtain, Brian edits a lot of our episodes and things. and you do an amazing job. That's a creative outlet right there. I've edited stuff. You do it in a different way, in a very different light. That is very creative. The TikToks and videos that you make, that's creativity. So you're a very creative person, just to put that out there. But all three of us are creative. And sometimes we've said it about this show is that we do it just for the love of it. We do it because we're creative and you need that outlet and you want to get it out. And it is a benefit that we get to talk about other creatives. And it's this whole just storm of creativity. I take a shot every time I say creative. You gotta just create. You just have to get it out.
Say it again. Say it again.
Creative.
Oh, whoo, that burns.
Noon on a Sunday. It's Super Bowl. Everyone get hammered. It's fine.
Well, see, I'm not a big football fan, and Rebecca and my oldest will be watching the Super Bowl, and I'll be listening to Savini Effect. No, Brian, she's right. When you first started, kind of like just experimenting with doing different things, like at first I was like, oh yeah, Brian, that's really good, but now you put out stuff now where honest to God on my father's grave, I'm like, holy shit, that was awesome. And a lot of it is just because you are experimenting and stuff like that. You've kind of created your own third space, but the third space thing is amazing for people. I've mentioned it briefly a couple times, I think, but in Jackson, Michigan, my hometown, early 2000s, there was this place called the Lost Word Bookstore. The front of it was an actual bookstore. The back end, a guy named Bill Bates built a third space, a community, and it was for creatives. So there was documentary filmmakers, comic book artists, and I became aware of this place. I wrote my first screenplay. I had no idea what to do. I was like 22 years old. I just sat down and decided to do it. And I was like, hey, this is pretty good. So I became involved out there. And because of Bill, why I went to LA for 2 weeks and tried to shop it around. Nothing became of it, but other opportunities arose from it, which I won't go on and on about. Maybe if anybody ever wants to interview me, I got some interesting stories. Not as interesting as Brian's new content, but I mean, they're interesting. So those third spaces are important because I'm a living example. I had no idea what to do. I was just a 22-year-old shop kid from Jackson, Michigan, and wrote a screenplay, and I was able to find a community to point me in a direction.
I think that's what Indie Spotlight's probably most about, or more about than anything, is a community. We talk about sharing and artists and all this stuff, but eventually it's all just one big community that tries to help each other.
Say creative.
Creative. Chug.
I just wanted to drink to what Brian just said. I'm drinking Mountain Dew, by the way. Yeah, I'm hitting the can. So
when you flash it by, it looks like Slurm from
Oh, not Slurm.
Slurm? What the hell is Slurm?
Slurm is from Futurama, right?
It comes out of alien's asshole. And they put it in bottles and they drink it.
This is the Bash Clint episode. You drink alien shit. We want you dead. We're going to make fun of you because you like paper and Rolodexes. Man, you guys are invited. You're not invited to come play at my third space. You go find your own third space.
I want to come to the third space. I do think that Brian had a good point, though, about, and that's a thing that's happening a lot, I think, these days with the internet and all that, is that people do have third spaces in the sense of we have indie, so you have a podcast, even the traveling spooky community of Michigan, I consider that somewhat a third space, like we get together for halfway to Halloween and all that sort of stuff. I have Discord servers that are kind of like a third space, but you need that physical space, that face-to-face, being able to verbalize ideas. And when you can actually feel that energy rising when people are conveying these ideas back and forth and building off each other and just flourishing, then that's why a physical third space is important.
So Leah, a funny story about that is, yesterday, the day before this recording, as you are aware, a bunch of people got out together at psychotherapy at the Nugget, and we were working on things out there, and we wandered across the street because Chris Krupe from Decompositions, I had him come out.
Yay, I love him.
We're commissioning Chris to make some more pieces for us for an indoor portion of the haunt. And so we run across the street and I'm showing him what we're going to do. And we're all kind of talking about it. And more ideas evolved from that. Like Chris put some input forth and we were like, oh shit, that's a great idea. We didn't even think of that. And then we walk out and who happens to be there? Joel. And there are a couple, I forget her name. I've talked to her, but she's one of the organizers as well of Halfway to Halloween. And it was her husband. They were at Blood Bash and they were just driving home and happened to be in the area. And they just stopped by by. So we walk out and they're there. So we're just chatting with them. So you talk about that community, and it all collided yesterday, and it's fun when that stuff happens. But
That's amazing. See, and that it could be that every day if we get that space created, and just having a spot where you can convene. When I was younger in downtown Plymouth, there was a coffee shop that was 24 hours, and eventually they shut it down because of noise ordinances and things like that, as they do. But it was just a space for young people to go, and we played music and we played games, and people just need a spot to convene. That's all. We weren't doing anything wrong, but I don't know why people are so opposed to those third spaces or are trying to suffocate them, but I like that you're trying to create one. I think that's very important and it's vital. And also I'm kind of disappointed that I missed out on Chris and Joel and all of them.
that's what happens. Brian talked earlier about always go, go, go. When you take a break, you miss out. Friday night, so 2 nights ago, Rebecca and I went and watched Hard Eyes.
Yes.
It was a very rare day for me. Savini Effect, I'm sorry. We've kind of strayed from talking about your wonderful music, but we're going to come back to it because it is very much worth it. It was one of those rare ass days where there was no drama. I didn't get a lot of phone calls. I didn't get 72 questions. It was a really quiet day. It doesn't happen for me too much. Mm-hmm. And so I just kind of turned off, and I knew she was showing up. We were going to go to the movies. Yesterday, Saturday morning, I wake up and needed to be on the clock, and I was so checked out. I'm like, it was rough.
That's what happens when you turn your brain off for a second. I didn't have a break, though, just so that we all are aware. I closed down a karaoke bar on Friday at 2 a.m. And then last night I went to a concert, and I went to an event yesterday at Moonlight Mystic. So I have been on the move. It's just that you have to get penciled in on my schedule sooner.
The karaoke thing makes sense. I mean, Brian and myself and everybody listening just heard your sweet karaoke skills.
I actually didn't sing. Someone else did my song first, and she butchered it, and I was really pissed about it. So I'm sitting there just mad and fuming at karaoke.
It doesn't matter. We heard the pipes. Savini Effect, if you ever decide to add vocals, get a hold of Leah Stalker.
Oh my goodness. My debut. The most important thing of this entire conversation, before we get back to the Savini Effect, what did you think of Hard Eyes?
We can't talk about that right now.
No? Why?
Because we're going to cover it on the feature show, so we can't talk about it now, then talk about it again.
When you guys said that we were going to talk about it on the podcast, I thought you were going to talk about it with me. I wanted to talk about Hard Eyes so bad. It's so good. Oh, I'm disappointed.
I guess you'll just have to listen to the show.
Fine, I'll tune in. Really twisted my arm there.
Well, let's wrap up Savini Effect. We can go to the podcast network, and then maybe we'll tell you a little bit about Hard Eyes. A little.
We already went to the podcast network.
They got a pizza party.
Oh yeah, we have pizza. That's why I'm.
Fuck it, let's go there again.
To the podcast network.
Podcast network again. Fuck, I'm serious. Play the buffer.
Fuck it, we ball. Fuck it, we ball.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal, providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.
And now that we've just heard from our podcast network, we're going to take a break and we're going to hear from our podcast network.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network.
Now that we've heard from the PFPN.
Like Leah said, now that we've heard from the PFPN, hopefully we can hear more from the Savini Effect. I hope we can get more music, more albums.
Interview. I want to talk to this man. I want to pick his brain about this because it's such an amazing project. And to just create something so epic and then to just not even share it, not even put it out onto Apple Music or Spotify or anything like that, just to keep it this little hidden nugget of goodness. I want it to be shared so badly. Usually when things aren't shared or people don't know about it, it's because maybe they're choked by the algorithm or people just not knowing or needing that word of mouth. He's passing out the CD randomly, but it's not available anywhere. There's nothing being done to get this out to people.
Well, first of all, I agree completely. And I think maybe it'll be like the first follow-up episode on Indie Spotlight. I have it here in my notes that I mentioned it earlier, I fully intend on reaching out to Paul and the other members of the band, who another guy is named Paul too. So Paul times two and the other guys. And even if they don't want to come on for an interview, maybe they'll just answer some questions that we can discuss. I'd love to. And it would give us a chance to play some more of their music. And I'll find out if there's more that we don't know about so we could play some more again. Because again, this is the first, it's kind of weird. This is the first thing we've covered on Indie Spotlight where we can't really direct people to go. One of the goals is Indie Spotlight is to bring awareness to smaller projects so people can go support it, and you can't with the Savini Effect. Follow-up episode coming, and we'll see what we can bring you. So, at the end of the shows, when we wrap these up, we always say, hey, don't forget to listen and subscribe and all that great stuff, and we're going to say that here, but we're always trying to get people to make sure they tune in and listen to all of the great content that we put out, to tune into Pure Macabre from Leah Stalker and see what's going on in Michigan. But I think right now we should they know that. Let's direct people to listen and close the show out by listening to a little bit more of the Savini Effect.
What do you think this is all about? You think this is a fucking costume? This is a way of life.